Members, good morning. We've formed a quorum and it's also the appointed time. Thank you very much for attending meetings of the morning meeting of PWSC in face masks. Well, as at the last meeting in the 2019-20 session, we've already examined 9 items involving funding of $20.649 billion. Now, let me finish the introduction first. Now, we have 4 papers on the item, and they're all outstanding from the last meeting. And the funding sought is $12.7456 billion in total. Assuming that all papers are approved by members, then cumulatively we would have approved 13 items involving $33.3925 billion. If we disregard the $2.4 million for land acquisition, money approved for public works will be $33.3901 billion. May I remind members that if you have a direct or indirect pecuniary interest in any of the items on the agenda today, please declare the nature of the interest involved before you speak on that item in accordance with ROP 83A. And may I draw members' attention to ROP 84 on voting arrangements on items where you have a direct pecuniary interest. So we are on paper PWSC 2019-2027, and this paper is for the Shatin to Central Link construction of railroad works and construction of non-railroad works. This paper seeks to increase the APE of 61 TR and 62 TR by $8,696.8 billion and $1,367 million from $65,433.2 million to $74,130.1 million to and from $5,983.1 million to $7,350.1 million, respectively. We started discussion of this paper in our last meeting dated the 18th of March, and we've spent more than 2 hours on that, and we'll continue with our discussion. For officials in attendance, we have already got the the attendance list. Ms. Tanya Chen, do you have any question, or is it a point of order? On the arrangements, I'm sure you have received a letter from the pandemic. I think the arrangement is far from desirable. Healthcare workers have asked us to stay home, and now we are here all together. And even for our sitting, it's so different. And on the 2017 December, more than $10 billion have been given to the government, and it's been more than 2 years. And according to insiders' information, on the 28th of December, and then on the 3rd of March, we had the Railway Subcommittee. Last week, it was the first time we considered this paper, and this is the second time. I think a lot of papers are still outstanding. It didn't used to be like this. Do you want to wait until the Finance Committee? We've asked about the police Sports and Recreational Club, and we've been given a very sloppy answer. On the 13th of March, I sent you another letter by Dr. K.K. Kwok on the 23rd of March, and all information we saw is still outstanding. Today is already the 25th of March, and we sent you many letters. I want to put on record. Now, the pro-establishment camp like to say members of the public watching a broadcast live. Well, I think this is very unfair. Within 3 weeks, we have had so many meetings on this item, and yet the government has been stalling with those figures for more than 2 years. Ms. Tanya Chen. Yes, I have received your letter on the meeting today. And yesterday, I replied to you. And as I said, we are at the dilemma. Well, the chairman has to consider the overall progress of the PWSC, and I think we are progressing very slowly. And because of the epidemic, indeed, we could not meet many times. I'm sorry. Ms. Senator Chen, please do not interrupt me. Regarding the arrangement of the agenda, of course, we will have to consider the priorities. For many items, they have been discussed in various panel meetings and on different occasions. And even though we started the discussion long ago, that doesn't mean that it was not pressing. On the contrary, because the discussion started long ago, now it has become a pressing matter. And I think we should observe good personal hygiene, and I hope that we can make good use of our meeting time. We're all wearing face masks, and I hope we can achieve the purpose of our meeting. Speaker is off mic. Secretary, do you want to respond, please? Thank you. Please allow me to say a few words. Chairman and members, first of all, I want to thank members for attending meeting of the PWSC, even though the epidemic is going on. Now, this is a pressing item. As said at the last meeting, if we cannot obtain funding within this legislative year, then by October, the works will have to stop because of a lack of funds, and that will bring tremendous impact on the needs of the traveling public and also the employment of workers concerned. We've heard what Ms. Tanya Chen said, and we have attended to questions from members very carefully. And I have brought along letters from Ms. Tanya Chen and Dr. K.K. Kwok on the 13th and the 23rd, respectively. Indeed, of course, the letters from members were dated 13th and the 23rd, respectively, but there was a delay in delivery of the letters to us. And then the information required is very meticulous, and we have been trying very hard to dig up our records and in actual calculation. Our objective is to complete the information ASAP and have it provided to members ASAP, and I hope we will respond to members in relation to the Shatin to Central link as far as possible.
Dr. Ching Chung Tai, point of order. Ms. Ray Chen. Well, you allowed Ms. Tanya Chen and Mr. Frank Chen to speak. I think members should be given 1 minute to speak, and I hope that we can get down to the agenda proper, maybe 1 minute. Dr. Ching Chung Tai first. I'm going to be very straightforward. Why don't you let the public know and address the issue of whether you are being fair to the frontline healthcare workers. Carrie Lam told people not to have meal gatherings, not to get out and about, and you said that you are finding yourself in a difficult situation. Other than the special full council meeting today, all the other meetings have been called off. Even the Finance Committee on Friday is going to be postponed. Why do we have to get on with this meeting? And the Finance Committee is having a huge backlog anyway. A very simple question to you. You're responding to Carrie Lam, and tell us whether you're being fair to the frontline medics. They are really sacrificing themselves to curb the viral epidemic. Well, today, LegCo has not ground to a halt. We have to be careful with the epidemic control, but LegCo has the duty to fulfill its duty, and we can fulfill our duty in a cautious manner. What about the frontline workers, the frontline healthcare workers? if in an unlikely event that one of our staff is tested positive, then the whole council will be grinding to a halt. Well, an important task today is that we're going to scrutinize the vote on account application this afternoon. If this cannot get through, then the frontline healthcare workers will not be able to get to work. Mr. Ray Chen, well, any meeting that has nothing to do with the epidemic should be cancelled. LegCo has been holding fast to this principle. Dr. Lo Wai Kwok, you're basically saying that since we're here for the full council meeting today, we might as well have the PWSC meeting. The full council meeting has been called off. The council meeting today is a special meeting. Why do we have to cancel the council meeting? Why didn't we do the questioning and all the rest of it? We are forbidden from putting questions to the administration. We're dealing with the VOA application. The FC has been called off, and we're going to be queuing up for the FC. Why do you have to take the risk and push this forward? This is wholly illogical. Anybody else? Dr. Fernando Zhang, 1 minute, please. Chairman, I have to censure you. I don't understand why there is a sense of urgency for this meeting, so urgent that everybody has to be called back here to deal with the Shatin Central line. We are seeking to curb the viral epidemic. All businesses are grinding to a halt the world over. What about schools? Schools have already been closed. A lot of services have been closed. The disadvantaged, the services for the disadvantaged, for the poor, for the elderly, have been suspended. Why do we have to come back for this meeting? Finance Committee has already been called off. LegCo is not grinding to a halt. We're here to deal with businesses to do with the epidemic. Why do we have to deal with this subject? You don't have to make life difficult for the medics. Mr. Ujiwai, I think this meeting is pointless because it has nothing to do with the epidemic. Also, it doesn't have any sense of urgency. Even if we get this through, this meeting today, you have a long queue at the Finance Committee. I don't know why or how you can jump the queue. Unless you want to jump the queue, I would say that you cannot really get this through the Finance Committee as soon as possible. Because of the epidemic, there is a global strategy against the epidemic. Many places have been locked down and social activities have been curbed, and every single country is resorting to this measure. Why is Hong Kong an exception? Now here we're sitting apart, but look at the officials. They're not sitting apart. They are very, very close. They're cheek by jowl. Where they are sitting, you're putting them in severe danger. Mr. Jeremy Tam, 1 minute, please. Chairman, well, LegCo is watched by a lot of people, and the chief executive is wise enough to ban alcohol sale and thinks that this would be enough to curb alcohol, curb the epidemic. We don't have alcohol in our hands, but I'm not sitting 2 meters away from my colleagues. When the whole of Hong Kong are trying to stay at home, this morning I heard from the radio that some doctors are suggesting, or some EXCO members are suggesting, that the government should ban 4 people together on the street. Now we're at this severe stage. You're calling a meeting. Now you said that since we're here today anyway, why don't we have the PWSC meeting? You do understand, Mr. Chairman? Do you understand the problem? Do you understand? Well, let's come back to the agenda proper. Item number 1. Mr. Alvin Young, 1 minute, please. Chairman, you don't even bother to say anything in response. You just go through the motion and let people speak for 1 minute, and that's it. You're really amazing. Well, you may even say that the chairman's decision cannot be challenged. Are you saying that we're spouting nonsense? I think Mr. Frank Chen, the secretary, might wish to tell us how urgent this funding is. I think you are finding yourself in a difficult position, and why the rush? You are going to be negotiating with people behind you. I hope that the management fee can be withheld. We will not be giving you any backup, any backing here. Why? What this subject has got anything to do with the epidemic? Are you holding a gun at the head of Dr. Lo Wai Kwok, or the other way around? Will you tell us what's happening between you? Mr. Alvin Young, you didn't hear my response and Mr. Frank Chen's response because you walked in late. You might wish to go back to the recording and find out what we have said. As regards today's meeting, I must say that I've already addressed members' questions in black and white last night. Sorry, Madam Tanya Chen. This is your time for you to speak. You don't have to yell in your seat. Speaking for the third time, 2 minutes, please. Mr. Frank Chen, are you being fair to the medics? Carrie Lam was really choking when she said what she said. We are told to stay home as much as possible. Look at Italy. Look at Spain. In Spain, there is a center where the old folks were abandoned to their own devices. Everybody has fled. Hong Kong is doing fine so far. We haven't got an outbreak in hospital. I mean, we touch wood. We should count our blessing. We can't trace some of the sources in the community. If there is one single case here, then it would be really disastrous. Why the urgency? If you say that this has something to do with Lo Wai Kwok, I'm going to ask him. Mr. Frank Chen, now from the point, the inside the story broke. It's not been a month. Give us a legitimate reason why we should be here. Mr. Frank Chen. Thank you very much, Ms. Chen, for your question and comment. Indeed, the whole of Hong Kong are fighting the epidemic, but indeed there are services that have to be continued. The frontline healthcare workers and the street cleaners and the security staff in the buildings are looking after us. Secretary will understand this. This is not an anti-epidemic fund. It's not a subject to do with the epidemic. Now, is it more important to maintain the functioning of the construction sector? What about the clubhouse? What about the healthcare workers who are serving Hong Kong all along? Well, there are delays in many areas. We understand that there is an urgency for discussion at this PWSC, and with the endorsement of this committee, we will seek to submit the funding to the Finance Committee. We're talking about $80 billion project that have to do with the livelihood, the hotels, and all the rest of it. Please give us a chance to discuss this item. Mr. Wu Chi-wai, 2 minutes for the third round. Chairman, Mr. Ted Chen asked you whether you are letting down the healthcare workers. You chose not to answer her. Now, this subject has to do with whether the construction sector has work lined up for them. There are many who are on the front line of the epidemic, the individuals, the healthcare workers, the cleaners, and they are on the sharp end of it. As Secretary, when you consider this, shouldn't you consider the fact that at this difficult time, are there any ways that we can do to minimize the transmission of the contagion. Carrie Lam said that we should avoid social gathering. Without social gathering, is it legitimate for us to have a work site gathering? Look at the work sites. Look at the workers. They are not wearing masks. They wear masks like this. Have you ever seen them in action? Have you send someone to the work sites to look at how they work and have spare a thought for them? If you haven't even thought about this, have you thought about the fact that you're leading a whole team of officials and you're not sitting at a safe distance, and there are so many officials who are serving you who have to work in the office because they have to be servicing you. They cannot work at home. The danger that you're putting your colleagues through is really enormous. Have you considered that? If they are in danger, if they are in trouble, will you be held responsible? Mr. Fren Cheng, response please. Thank you very much for your comments. We understand that we are talking about a social distance. Here in the council meeting, we have all the precautions taken. We can deal with the droplets. I think we can be more concise and precise in our business, and it will help. Now, some members ask me whether I am letting the healthcare workers down. The construction sector is being fair to the healthcare workers. We are working in partnership with the frontline medics. During the epidemic period, we have discussed the quarantine centers that are built with the prefab measures. There are quarantine centers that are built with modular housing. The frontline construction workers have been working day and night to get these up and running. And I hope that members should not cause division in our community. The construction sector are working in partnership with the healthcare workers. We do need to take precaution against the viral epidemic, but a lot of facilities have to be built to serve Hong Kong. Hong Kong cannot afford to grind to a halt. That's all I have to say. Thank you. Dr. Fernando Cheung, 4 minutes. Dr. Cheung, please.
主席，
Chairman, we haven't said that the works sector has let down the healthcare workers. Of course, the works sector has contributed a lot to the community. Many of our quarantine centers are the fruits of the labor of the works sector. And of course, many quarantine centers are also being built. The whole world is doing its utmost to fight the epidemic. We want to contain the virus. We should not engage ourselves in meetings to discuss on non-pressing meetings that have got nothing to do with the epidemic and resulting in more infections, and so that the works sector can build more quarantine centers. This is not the way to do things. I think Frank Chen, Secretary Chen, you should have a judgment. Your boss is saying that nothing should be discussed, and anything related to fighting the epidemic should be discussed, and others should be shelved first. And why are you here? You should be rational. Our officials should have some common sense. Our experts in Hong Kong have said many times that we are in a critical period because with so many returnees from overseas, from countries with serious outbreaks, and most of them are Hong Kong people. And we're not sure whether we'll enter into a third stage. For the first stage, the disease came from the mainland. As second stage, a local outbreak due to social activities in places like the Buddhist temple. Luckily, we were able to contain those outbreaks. So the second wave outbreak was not sustained. And now Professor Gabriel Leung said that we are at an unprecedented stage is most critical. So, of course, not everything should come to a halt, but then we should deal with issues really related to the epidemic. Now, for cost overrun of the Shatin to Central Link, what has it got to do with the fight against the disease? You talk about significance to our economy and livelihood, where everything is related to the economy and livelihood. Why should we bear such risks? How come, Secretary for Transport and Housing, you can go against a consensus in the community? Everything should ensure social distancing as far as possible. I'm not saying that everything should grind to a halt, but then you should set aside things that are not really related to the fight against the epidemic. Why can't that be done? Now, for the meeting in the afternoon is the provisional appropriation bill. Yes, I can see the significance because with the government needs money to continue its operation. But for the Shatin to Central Link, the works would only have to stop in October if funding is not available now. So why the urgency? Mr. Chen, I share Dr. Zheng's views. We cannot stop our work in this fight against the epidemic. And I see that we are properly protected, everyone here. We go in out of the council building, or we are sanitized, and I think it is sufficient. Now, given that the work is pressing here, should we continue? Of course, we have different interpretations as to what is meant by urgent. But in Finance Committee, there is a big jam. And if some projects are suspended, then that could have serious implications. So there are a lot of factors when it comes to setting priorities. Yes, one factor may be very important, but that doesn't mean that the other, all other factors can be disregarded. Mr. Jeremy Tam, 3 minutes. Mr. Tam. Chairman. Is Shatin to Central Link a pressing matter? Many members have commented on this point already. But then we have the site formation for new towns and urban areas, Hong Shui Q, expansion of Hong Kong Science Museum and Hong Kong Museum of History. And we have also got planning and engineering study for Long Ku Tan reclamation and replanning of Two Moon West area. Are they really that pressing, Chairman? Is today's meeting really essential? Please go on. Well, I'm done. I'm waiting for your reply, Chairman. I already made myself very clear in previous replies. PWSC has got its terms of reference in vetting public works. If we do not complete our part here, then the papers cannot be submitted to the Finance Committee. Well, all panels and committees and even the Council have got their respective terms of reference. Even Andrew Leung has decided that for today's Council meeting, we will only consider the provisional appropriation bill. And the Finance Committee scheduled for Friday is already cancelled. So is Chan Kim Po from the opposition camp? Is he totally unsympathetic of the needs of the community? So you are vetting public works here. What about those items under the Finance Committee chaired by Chan Kim Po? We are one council. Things approved here will have to be approved by Finance Committee ultimately. How can there? Why can there be two different rationales when it comes to the pro-establishment camp. Mr. Tam, I think you must have heard Mr. Chen Kim-paul's comments. When urgent meetings, urgent items are presented to him, then he will have to convey the meeting, even wearing masks. So it's very important to have a new building for the Science Museum. And what about is it because the Tokyo Olympic Games to be postponed for 1 year, we must have this building completed at once? Or do you get my point? You talked about pressing items, but don't you see that some of the agenda items here are not pressing at all? Dr. Cheng Chong-tai. Chairman, you didn't really address my question. Carrie Lam asked whether we can be accountable to healthcare workers. I think it's for you to answer, Chairman. Is your arrangement doing a service to our healthcare workers? I think this question should be addressed by Mr. Frank Chen. The government has to ensure the day-to-day operation of the community is normal, and to ensure that people's lives should not be disrupted as far as possible. Now, for every weekend, in recent days, if I remember correctly, we have meetings involving the government. Our objective is to how to enhance support for healthcare workers, how we deploy our resources and manpower and technology to fight the disease. So please do not smear the purpose of this meeting. All meetings have their own objectives. Of course, whether the meeting should be held or not, and if you ask whether the meeting is really needed or urgent, can I appeal to members, please set aside this issue and focus on the item itself to make the meeting more meaningful. Now, if Mr. Frank Chen is of the view that as far as possible, his work is not to disrupt the lives of Hong Kong people. Now, if you are really so diligent, I'd like to ask, how come we have this item to cover the cost overrun of the Shatin to Central Link? All the issues related to the Shatin Central Link and the Hong Kong extension. Now, if you are really so keen about the works, how come we have had this paper in front of us? Mr. Chen. The increase in APE of the Shatin to Central Link is explained in the paper, and I don't think it was a problem that developed overnight. It all started in 2012, and so what we have today did not just start yesterday or today. Mr. Alvin Young. Mr. Chen. No. Let me put it this way. Has our chairman, Mr. Loy Kwok, ever consulted you, Mr. Frank Chen, whether we should have a meeting today? Well, we usually look at the rules of procedures. We had our meeting on the 18th of March. And the workflow will depend on the agenda of PWSC. Since this item is on the agenda, we're here. I think you've been very clever in answering this question. Of course, the epidemic is very serious and many meetings have been cancelled. And I asked you, Mr. Chen, whether our chairman has discussed with you whether today's meeting should go ahead. Mr. Young, is the secretariat that has discussed with me as to whether the meeting should go ahead. As simple as that. Now, I've considered the progress of the PWSC, given that many meetings have been cancelled already. And then we started the discussion on these Shatin and Central Link last week, and for continuity's sake, I discussed with the Secretariat, and as we all know, the Secretariat has done a lot to ensure that we have appropriate and proper infection control measures in place here. Please do not second guess and think that the chairman of the PWSC will convene meetings under the influence of different parties. There is no need for Mr. Frank Chen to respond to your question, although you have overrun already. No, there is no need. Mr. Lo Wai Kwok. So you wanted me to answer your question. Well, there is no need for you to second guess my intention. I put a question to Mr. Chen, and you should ask him to reply. But you mentioned two names in your question, myself and Mr. Frank Chen. Of course, I have to sort out the facts and let you know that after what I have done, after receiving your letter yesterday, your time is up. Yes, you can go on. It doesn't matter. I can allow you a little bit more time. I'd like to ask Mr. Frank Chen, no matter whether the paper is passed today or not. Now, if it is passed, will it jump the queue when it goes to the Finance Committee? Thank you. As I said, it is really very pressing that we get the support, the funding support from the Council. If we cannot get it by October, there will be serious implications to the whole community, the economy, as well as people's livelihood. So with the support of PWSC, we hope that we can have FC's blessing. Now I'm asking whether you're going to jump the queue. No, the agenda is decided by the Council. No, in consultation with the government. We have to liaise with the chairman first.
I asked for a quorum count. We don't have a quorum, right? Too short. So ring the bell, please. Some of them had just walked out.
好，而家夠人數啦，係。
All right. Mr. Ben Chen, 3 minutes for the second time, please. Chairman, thank you. Last time, I asked the Secretary for the extra funding the $1.3 billion have not been included. The Secretary said that through communication they can ask the MTRC not to collect the $1.3 billion. Now we have items A to G. There are 6 items in which that they have done something extra. So through frank communication, you can ask them not to collect the fee. Now, over the past couple of years, the MTRC has put up the fares a couple of times, and the Secretary said that they have to respect the shareholders' interests. Have you engaged the MTRC for frank communication to not put up the fares so often? Over the past 10 years, they have put up the fares so many times. Now, if we ask the MTRC to reduce the fare, how can you engage the MTRC to reduce the fare in a frank communication? Secretary, Chairman, well, this is not part of the paper. However, I'm prepared to make a response here. In my communication with anybody, I would be frank, because with mutual respect and frank and transparent attitude, we can gain mutual respect and understanding. So in terms of the increase in the management fees and also the public's aspiration, I would engage my colleagues for frank discussion. Certainly, I would be frank in this regard. So if members have any comments regarding our work or regarding the performance of our work, I welcome your views. I would communicate with you in an earnest manner. Mr. Chen, my question is relevant because through frank discussion, you can stop them collecting $1.3 billion in management fee. So have you been as frank in the past so that the MTRC managed to put up the fare over the past 10 years? Now, will you be adopting this frank attitude to communicate with the MTRC to not put up the fares so often? Secretary, well, communication has to be frank. This is beyond dispute. I hope that you would understand that when we're dealing with issues, we do have the mechanism, we do have the rule of law to consider. Communication is frank. We try to get across our message in as frank a manner as possible, but we have to look at the contract and the mechanism. Your time is up. Your time is up. On the question of management fee, this has been brought up many times. Regarding the fare increase, please take it up on separate occasion. Mr. Chen, well, you haven't answered my question before. Now, you convene this meeting. Is it because of the fact that since we're here today, we might as well have the meeting? Are you saying that without the council meeting today, you will not have convened this meeting? Well, it's a yes or no question, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chen, you probably remember that we have called off the PWSC meetings a number of times because the council meeting was cancelled also. Today, I did discuss with the Secretariat since a council meeting has been scheduled and all the backup staff are here. So to convene the PWSC meeting today, we are not causing any additional stress to the Secretariat staff. Mr. Chen, FC has called off for the 6-hour meeting today, and this we will not be able to link up with the FC anyway. Well, I have to answer this question. If the PWC doesn't call the meeting at all, the FC meetings will have to be called off because there are no papers delivered to them. And so this segment is very important. I hope that you would treasure the time here. I'm not debating with you here. The FC has called off the meetings, and they have a backlog here. If the FC is in session and we can channel the items to them, even if we get the paper through today, we have to queue up. Are you going to put this item on top of the pile at the FC meeting? Are you going to advance this ahead of every other item at the FC meeting? Secretary, as some members asked a similar question before, I can let you know that for the SCL, it has been going on for about 10 years now. And this is a strategic railway development which will bring a lot of convenience to the commuting public. We don't want to see this grinding to a halt. Before this grinds to a halt, we have to let everybody know that the impact would be enormous. Mr. Chen, and I hope that you will give us support. Mr. Chen, you've got a point. If the PWC is to endorse this paper, we will seek to have this paper vetted by the Finance Committee within this year. Mr. Wuchiwai, 1 minute for the 4th time. Chairman, the Secretary kept saying that if the paper is not endorsed, then the rest of the SCL project will be halted and the economic impact would be severe. Have you conducted any assessment? What are the specific impacts arising from the study? Now, this $1.5 billion contingency will be sitting there just in case. I noticed that from para 30 of the paper, you said that this will be to cater for the claims from the contractor. So this is not sitting there just in case. This is going to be put to some use. So this is sitting there for the purposes of claims being filed against you. So the sum could be $4.6 billion. So this $4.6 in claims, this has not been budgeted for, and this contingency amount will be enough to cater for the claims. That your idea, Mr. Chen? Well, the contingency there in case is our expectation. We hope that they will not be used over the years in the public works projects. We have to deal with the claims and so on. So your point is right, Mr. Wu. Our position is that we'd like to have this amount just in case, but we have to prepare for the worst case scenario. Now, if this project is halted, Dr. Kam has already explained this before. Perhaps I can defer to Dr. Kam to let you know about the workers and the economic impact and so on. Mr. Jacob Kam, please. Chairman, thank you. Thanks very much. The Secretary mentioned that the money will be used up in October. If the money is not forthcoming, we will notify the contractors to get ready to stop work. We have 2,700 personnel in the construction project at different positions. If we have to bring this to a halt, then the excavated areas will have to be filled back in the equipment will be moved away and mothballed. There are certain contracts that will be subject to claims if the workers have stopped work or changed their line of work. We'll have to bring them back in to reactivate the work, and we, in absence of experienced staff, will have to retrain the new one, and we're going to have to re-tender some of the projects. So in terms of costs and timing, there will be severe impact. I'm asking you about the economic impact. You're talking about the details of the construction work. Carrie Lam said that we have to observe the social distancing, we have to advise social activities. Does it mean that in the work sites we don't have to observe the social distancing and avoid any contacts? Yes, Mr. Kam, on procedures on sites. If I may address the question about the economic impacts, this line is linking up with many districts, many of the new and old districts, and this will bring about a tremendous development potential. So is there such an urgency? Well, your time is up. Perhaps you might wish to say something about the measures on work sites.
Can you please give a very brief response? We follow guidelines from the administration. We have infection control measures in place at our work sites, including temperature, body temperature checks, and environmental hygiene, and also protective measures. Thank you. Mr. DG, 4 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. I have got 2 questions. Now, there are 4 items on the agenda. We have attendance lists for all items. Are you saying that apart from the team led by Mr. Frank Chen meeting with us in this council, we have still got a few batches of government officials waiting for their turn on the agenda? Is that correct? And secondly, you talked about the important role played by PWSC, so that even though FC has cancelled its meetings, you have to press ahead in order to allow this production line to continue. What about the Capital Works Block Grant? You said that to respect the government, you allow it to go directly to the Finance Committee. You should not shift the goalpost so outrageously. Allow me to answer your questions. Now, for government representatives waiting for their turn, I'm sure the Secretariat has arranged for sufficient social distances for them. Well, are they all 2 meters apart? No, let me finish first. No, you should address my first questions first. Are all officials at least 2 meters apart? Well, allow me time. No, I'm afraid you're not done with my first question. I've already done so. If you're not happy with my answer, that's your issue, but I've already answered it. Now, for the block grant for capital works that involve more than 10,000 projects and over 1,000 new projects. They have been discussed by the PWSC for 3 meetings to no avail. And because the government was pressed for time, the item was directly submitted to the FC. This is far from desirable. And as chairman of the PWSC, I found that regrettable. But you came out to support it, not because there was no other option. There was no alternative. How can you say so? We're still in March. When has it to be passed? After the 1st of April, you're shifting the goalpost. Well, you just act according to the government's wish. Mr. ADG, your time is... I have to answer your questions. Now, if you can refrain from speaking, I can give you the microphone. But you would only say yes, yes, yes to what the government wants. When the government wants A, you support A. When the government wants to bypass the PWSC, you support its proposal. You're not really a proper chairman. I think this is a very unfair comment against the government. Now, for the capital works block grant, as I said in January, it was discussed in 2 meetings, and the item could not be put to the vote. And then afterwards, because of the epidemic, PWSC meetings were cancelled. Chairman, you have been chairman of the PWSC for so many years, starting from 2016-17. Now, most of, in 16, 17, 17, 18, we had we could comment on that item. We could speak on that item for 8 rounds, and every time you break the convention, and you are still happy. Mr. Tony Z, 3 minutes, speaking for the second time. Chairman, I think we have all sat along on whether the meeting should be convened this morning. I think we have all spoken abundantly on this, and if we have any query, I think we should get down to our work. Now it is not your turn, Mr. T.G. Please do not yell in your seat. Mr. Tolisi, of course, we've already made our comments, and the chairman, I'm sure, have heard them since we're in this meeting already. So let's be pragmatic and do not waste our meeting time. Otherwise, the risks will be wasted. As said in the last meeting, we are asking for an extra $60.7 billion from the, and now it's just $10 billion. So for the contingency, is now reduced to $1.7 billion only. So I think according to my latest estimate, we are only giving $14.7 billion because some money has been saved. So it's been 10 years, and the extra APE is just $2 billion. And of course, Mr. Frank Chen can explain to us whether this is justified. I hope that after endorsing this extra money, it can be more realistic, because it will only take 2 more years for the project to be completed. We trust MTLC because it is responsible for construction and monitoring and verification. And then the Highways Department in 2012 commissioned Pai Poon to be the monitoring and verification consultant. And that consultant has been commissioned by the Highways Department. I'd like to know whether the consultancy fee is included in the construction fee, or is it under a separate account? If yes, how much? This consultant is very important. It is the gatekeeper on behalf of the Highways Department. Of course, we are not querying whether the MTLCL has done a good job in monitoring, but we have seen incidents where the consultants' performance had a lot to be desired. So I'd like to ask whether the money is paid by the Highways Department or included in this contract. The consultant is directly employed by the Highways Department. The consultancy fee is included in the budget. And in this funding application, because of the increase in the duties of the M&V consultant and increases its workload, we have sought another $44 million to pay the consultant. So it's the Highways Department's does the highway department decide whether the consultancy should be paid? Because the consultant is directly employed by the highways department and managed directly by the highways department too. So the MTLCL is not involved, and the consultant works under the direction of the highways department. Ms. Tanya Chan, it's funny to say that the risk we bear today should not go to waste, but in fact we shouldn't need to bear this risk at all in the first place. Now for the exhibition station, I asked for details. Now it is already 1 week. I'd like to ask for information related to internal audit of the exhibition station, because at first we're told that the MTLCO employs ISO standards, and then you have an expert team to look at that station. So I'd like to know when a report will be available. And for conservation, when it comes to Songwon Toy Station, I'd like to know how come the figures can go up and down as you like. It was 4.1 and then 5.4 billion, and then it's now $3 billion. I'd like to know what has happened in the interim, because I'm very worried. Because Songwon Toy Station, according to media reports, I have seen many of the archaeological items destroyed. Mr. Frank Chen. Now for the AEL. Stations along the AEL have had their audit reports completed and submitted to the government. For the exhibition station, it has yet to be completed because we need to check our ISC forms and the quality of works. Oh, Chair, Secretary, you do understand that RIC forms have to be completed before the next step. And if you have done an internal audit, that would have been discovered a long time ago. Now, 30% of the RISC forms for 2016-17 are missing, and you have dug deeper than planned, and you found bombs, this and that. So I'm so concerned about the exhibition station. Yes, exhibition center station. Yes, I know why you are so anxious, and we have completed all the reports for stations already completed by and large. Ms. Chen would like to have a report involving the RISC forms and also other things related to exhibition center station. We can do it at the next railway subcommittee meeting. Dr. Jacob Kam. So Ms. Tanya Chen would like to ask about the money for the archaeological works of Mr. Bayliss can help.
Okay, so the works at Songwon Toy, the archaeological works, that's been answered in the extent of the archaeological works and preserving the archaeological features. That was an additional $1.9 billion. And then preserving in situ most of the archaeological discoveries, that was another $1 billion. And then proposing the J2 well and some water channels, that was a minor amount, just an $8 million, giving a total of $2.99 billion.
主席，我文件啫，好嘛？ABC 3。
No, I'd like to know the savings under ABC. I don't know, because I didn't hear properly. I'd like to know the savings for items ABC.
I'm not quite sure why you mean savings, because these were additional costs incurred as these archaeological relics were discovered and preserved, and the disruption to the ongoing activities. So there were actually additional costs as opposed to savings.
But the original increase is from 4.1 billion Hong Kong dollars. It's from 4.1 to 5.4, and now it comes down to around 3 billion Hong Kong dollars. That's why.
So yeah, there was there's an additional cost, but has the additional cost been reduced?
Reduced.
So there's a question. Roger, please.
The $2.99 billion was for the three items that I've just explained. In addition to that, there is future works that haven't yet actually been carried out. For example, we're having to reroute one of the connection adits, one of the connections to the station, and that in itself, together with all of the prolongation delay, the delay recovery measures that we took at the time, those have increased. Those were the difference between the 2.99 billion and the 4.0 billion that you will have had reported previously.
好，下一位楊岳橋議員第四次嘅1分鐘，楊議員。
Mr. Alvin Young, 4 minutes. For pages 9 and 10 of Appendix 1. Now we have got reasons for the increase in funding. Now we talk about more than $10 billion in cost overrun. Well, the explanation is very limited, because of a request from stakeholders. Now, I'd like to ask a breakdown of the reasons for the modifications. How can you just use one sentence and expect that we can accept it? Can we be given more details? Now, more can be found in the enclosure. Yes, please. In enclosure 1, apart from the total, now from para 20 to 23, we have explained modifications made in response to feedbacks and requirements of stakeholders.
For the West Rail, we have procured the rolling stock to change from 7-car to 8-car trains. All these details are sent out in the paper. Mr. Wu Chi-wai, 1 minute for the fifth time. 2 questions. I noticed that in response to colleagues, there is a table regarding the claims that have not been resolved. It is $4.6 billion for the unresolved claims. There is an interim release of $1.2 billion. Does it mean that despite the fact that they have not been resolved, are you confirming that they will be resolved? And how much is it going to be in the end? For the claims, have you built the total into the allocation? And this will become part of the construction cost. Also, para 10 of enclosure 1 says that one of the reasons for the increase is the contingency of $1.5 billion. Now, is this $1.5 billion, does it mean that it is worth the $1.5 billion mentioned in the paper? I take this question briefly, and I defer to the MTRC. For the claims, according to the latest information, there are 2 parts to the claims. One part, we have reached the consensus with the contractor regarding the amount of money. That this amount has been included. For the other part, as Mr. Wu said, there are claims that remain unresolved. As of today, the contractors have failed to submit enough information for us to resolve all the claims in this part. For some of them, in principle, they have the justification, but we need to have further information before we can verify the figures. So for the ones that we have the estimate, we can release part of the amount. For others, we can conduct some evaluation, and the evaluation is on the basis of the present information we have. And there may be situations that we cannot be sure of for the time being. So we have to make preparation for these in the context of the contingency. So for unresolved claims, we do have to set aside a certain amount of money. As to whether we need to spend the money, we cannot be sure because we haven't got all the information with us. In some cases, the contractors have not filed their claims yet, and because the work is still going on. So in the contingency, we have to set aside a certain amount of money to get prepared for the claims that may be forthcoming. Perhaps I defer to the MTRC for further details. Yes, Mr. McKenzie.
For this, and if I can just say a few more words to expand. There are a number of claims which we have received which are not yet resolved, for which a sum has been paid on an interim basis. It is quite normal for a large and complex project of this nature for claim particulars to be submitted relatively late in the project. So we do expect more particulars to be received, and as and when they are received, we will make appropriate assessments. I must emphasise strictly in accordance with the contract terms. Our job, of course, is to ensure that all claims, when received, are vetted and that only claims which are valid are paid according to the contract terms. We have also an expectation that we will receive more claims in due course, and appropriate allowance has to be made within the contingency and the cost to complete the project. But again, I emphasise our role is to ensure that we minimise our spend against this, and will do everything we can to control and minimise cost and reduce the outturn of the project as far as we can.
Chairman, what about the unresolved claims? How much of the money has been built into the funding here?
Answer to this question, please. Yes, please.
We make an assessment of the potential liabilities in respect of the different events which have arisen. Many of these relate to unforeseen ground conditions, physical conditions, and we are making appropriate allowances. But however, there is a sense of commercial confidentiality that we cannot divulge the exact sums, because this will encourage contractors to make claims. So we have to ensure that we're doing everything we can to minimise the claims and to minimise the cost of the project. So we have allowances which are prudent and which are reasonable, and they will be, our outturn will be minimised as far as we can.
Mr. Attiju, 3 minutes. Chairman, thank you. Last week, I was otherwise engaged. I couldn't make it to the meeting. I'm not sure whether this question has been put. Having read the paper, I don't think I can pass the funding proposal, because there are two camps here, the MTRC and the government. Between them, there is what I call black box operation between them, and the sums or the figures have been changed massively without any reason being given. In the paper, page 3, 2017, that it was an increase of $16.5 billion. Somehow, the administration said that they tried to squeeze the amount, and instead of $16.5 billion, there is a reduction of $4.4 billion. And this slashing of $4.4 billion, I mean, I am really ignorant. I don't know how this happened. Maybe Mr. Lam Sai Hong would be interested because he's very concerned about cost control. By squeezing the figures, the government seems to be able to reduce the amount from 87.3 to 82 point something dollars. You haven't explained why the 4.4 billion came about. Now the figure is going to come down further from 82.9 because you're not going to pay the management fee. Maybe this is considered as a penalty. Mr. Ben Chen asked you whether you have a frank discussion with the MTRC. Has there been any give and take? And then from 81.6 it's come down to 80.8. Now from 81.6 to 80.8, we seem to understand why this is happening. I'd like to hand the floor to the government and MTRC to let us know whether they have any deals between them or is there any paper? I mean, you owe us an answer there. Mr. Frank Chen. Chairman, thank you very much, Mr. Eddie Chu. I must say that we beg to differ. The highways, the SAR government and MTRC do not have any black box operation as you refer to. Has there been any transparency, Mr. Secretary? We don't know what you have been discussing between you. Well, please let the Secretary. The Highways Department and M&V consultant scrutinized all the information submitted by the MTRC and the risks that they anticipated were discounted. And if the prices are considered high and they will be slashed, I can defer to the Highways Department to let you know about its justifications, all the ins and outs. Yes, please. Chairman, in 2017, when the MTRC submitted the projections, we conducted a very detailed assessment. Now, this assessment was not a mere scrutiny of the figures. We looked at the 58 different contracts in the SCL project. We looked at each and every project to see whether there is any increase in the amount and whether the increase, if any, is well justified and well in line with the contractual terms. So through this very detailed scrutiny, some of the projects that we considered reduction is justified. We have made some reduction. From 2017 to now, it's been 2 years on. A lot of the projects that were going on have been completed. And we didn't have any certainty of the situation before, like the geological condition. Before the project, we had to set aside some money to cater for the uncertain scenarios in which more money will be required. Now, these uncertainties have been removed because many of the projects have been completed. So we can be more specific about the projections. So we have managed to achieve some savings, some reduction there. Also, this increase of $16.5 billion, this has catered for the increase in management fee, and we said that there is no justification to pay extra management fee. So that has achieved some savings as well. Dr. Fernando Zhou, 3 minutes for the second round, please. Chairman, thank you. Chairman, I'm not going to go into the details or the scandal of overspends regarding the SCL. I'm not going to go into this today. You shamelessly ignore our fundamental principle that we have to observe the social distancing, we have to observe the epidemic control principle. we're not trying to rush through certain projects. We have to rush into making money. The whole society is grinding to a halt because of the epidemic. If the global epidemic is so severe, and we are saying that we have to prioritize the projects ahead of the epidemic, are we being fair to all the carers, to the healthcare workers and everybody who is on the sharp end of the epidemic? What about the pubs and the restaurateurs? They have to halt their services, and you don't halt the SCL. What's so special about the SCL? If you don't have the meeting, is it going to be fatal? Are you seeking to disperse more money to get the police officers facilities up and running? What's the urgency? I think that the whole thing is so ridiculous. I mean, the POC, the Police Officers Club, the chief executive is saying that we should not talk about anything else. And she's saying that the healthcare workers are having a hard time, and will have to observe all the rules, and those bracelet wearers should not be out and about, and they will be prosecuted, they will be sent to jail, and so on. The situation is depicted in such a serious manner. And here, you're not as serious about the situation when it comes to the projects, because you have to have the funding for the SCL because the workers have to start working. What do you take the electrical for? Does this administration have any principles? Is this the way for you to control the epidemic?
Even airlines have stopped operation, and you want to convene a meeting for the Shatin to Central Link. There are workers who are out of work there, and still they are holding the fort, and the healthcare workers are there working in hospitals, and you want us to work for the Shatin to Central Link. I have to say that for the works sector, they do not just include frontline workers working at construction sites. Now, we need water supply, electricity supply, sewage, and transport, and also the MTR. They are not. They will not allow Hong Kong to grind to a halt, and they are still serving us. There is no need for me to repeat how pressing the Shatin to Central Link is. We have had enough discussion of it. So, members, if you have views or dissenting views, you can ask questions. You can make your comments. There is no need for you to say no to everything and to have negative comments on the surface of the construction sector. Ms. Claudia Mo, have a point. You are imputing motive to members' remarks. You said that we oppose everything, and we oppose for the sake of opposing. No, I'm afraid I haven't said this, Ms. Claudia Mo. You didn't say that we oppose anything whatsoever, but you impute motives to members' comments. All right. Ms. Claudia Mo, please come back to this item. I find it hard to understand. Even Friday's FC meeting has been cancelled. Even Chen Kim-po is of the view that we are at a critical juncture. All right. I think you are more anxious than the government itself. Why the rush this morning? Even the Finance Committee has been cancelled. And the PWSC is working like a crazy engine. Ms. Colodimo, you do not need to impute my motive, because I gave a statement yesterday as to why the meeting should be convened. I saw it. You said that taking into account a number of factors. Well, Ms. Colodimo, you came in a little bit late, and then you might have missed some of the remarks and my responses. So please come to the paper. How come 1 minute or so has been deducted from my speaking time? Because I was in a dialogue with the chairman. Well, if you want me to respond, I will. All right, I've been very flexible this morning. All right. The MTRCL would like to increase the project management fees to $1.4 billion, and we're told that the dispute might be resolved through a legal means. I'd like to know when and whose decision it is, because now I'm not second guessing, but I suspect that that it is the parent company suing a subsidiary, and this is ridiculous. And when it claims
in due course, can you actually estimate such claims? How much are we talking about? And exactly how many cases are you expecting to be taken to court? 兩個問題.
2 questions. Which one from the team? Mr. Frank Chen. I have a go first. Regarding the point of legal means. According to our contract, should there be any dispute between the two parties, then frontline colleagues at different levels will discuss those issues first, such as the project estimate, and that can be resolved by means of discussion. And as for the extra project management fees, if the two parties cannot come to an agreement, then the senior levels will first discuss it with good view, with the intention to resolve it. And failing that, we will resort to legal means. In our negotiation on the extra project management fees, we are confident that through negotiations and contacts between the senior levels of the two parties, the issue can be resolved. Of course, resolving the matter by legal means is something we don't want to see. Perhaps I can ask Mr. Scott to take Ms. Clodimo's question on claims.
Question on the claims.
Yes, thank you for the second question. The number of claims received is approximately 1,000. These claims are, some are large, some are small, some are simple, some are complicated, and they are submitted by contractors in accordance with the relevant terms of the construction contract. And indeed, contractors do have the right to make claims as and when, in their opinion, circumstances so justify. Insofar as the likelihood of there being court proceedings, our contracts in actual fact provide for initially an escalation process whereby the matters are first considered at a senior level among the parties. Then there is provision for mediation, and only failing that, there is provision for arbitration. Our objective in all cases is to try and settle claims in an amicable way, in a way which is, of course, strictly in accordance with the terms of the contract. And it can, however, be, from time to time, there can be dispute resolution processes. I cannot say at this time how many there will be, but my expectation is there would not be many, there may be a few. But of course, this will be determined over the course of the remaining part of the project and possibly beyond.
Okay. 下一位許智峰議員係第一次嘅4分鐘。
Mr. Ted Hui, first round, 4 minutes. First, I have to comment on the meeting arrangement. You don't have to interrupt me. I've been here since the first minutes of the meeting. I've heard all your comments. Now, council meetings Finance Committee, and all most meetings have been cancelled for the sake of the health of our Secretariat, members of this Council, and government officials, all with the exception of PWSC. You press ahead regardless. I doubt whether the PSCL is more important than human lives, or is it because of all other works also on the agenda? Now, if works can continue, then it's favorable for the sector, and perhaps it would also be to your benefit. I think the public will have this suspicion that you have to clarify, and the government has got no standards at all. If you think that this is a pressing project, then under the Home Affairs Department, all district council meetings have been cancelled. Not even one can go ahead. They appeal to chairman of district councils not to convene meetings. Previously, they even locked up meeting doors. Members were not allowed to meet even at corridors because district councils wanted to discuss police violence. So the HAD forbade them to have meetings. And Frank Cheng, you are part of the the government. Have you ever talked to the chairman that this is we're in the middle of an epidemic and that meeting should be deferred? So you make life difficult for the pandemics, and yet for the establishment members, you will always accede to their wish. So, Frank Chen, have you ever talked to the chairman that in view of the epidemic, we should reduce contacts and practice social distancing? No, because you do not have any principle. You only consider political needs, and then, in your view, you need this meeting in order to get funding. Well, even for the council, it's just the same. Urgent questions, oral questions related to the epidemic are disallowed. They can all be cut. We only discuss the provisional appropriation bill. So, Mr. Frank Chen, have you discussed with the chairman whether fighting the epidemic is important? Now, Mr. Ted Hui asked whether there is any conflict of interest in my convening this meeting. There's absolutely none. I have to discharge my duty as the chairman of the PWSC, and I have made very prudent consideration. Is there any conflict of interest involved? Or is it there is none? And I think it's an offense against the chairman. When I query that there is conflict of interest, is it an offense? No conflict of interest at all. I'm only discharging my duty as the chairman of PWSC. Mr. Frank Chen. I think Mr. Hui might not have heard our earlier comments. I already said that I heard all your comments starting from the first minute. I think the chairman made his justifications clear to you. No, you don't have to speak on behalf of the chairman. I already explained that with respect the council, when there is an item on the agenda, we have to be here. Why is it just your own bureau? Now, when a meeting is politically needed, you appear in a meeting. If we criticize you, you just do not turn up. Mr. Abraham Sheck. Paris 24, 5, 6. Para 24. So in order to allow for flexibility for the development on top of the station, additional cost was involved. I'd like to know, wasn't it expected? Because in your plan, you have already designed topside development. So can you please explain? And Para 24, because of CDA, however, the CDA was always planned. So I think your explanation is not very solid. So as a result of what's listed in paras 24 to 26, we have extra expenditure, but the explanation is not very convincing because the plan is always here. Para 28. Now I want you to give you a chance to explain. The actual tender prices were slightly lower than the pre-tender estimate. Now you tell us that there was a saving of $797.3 million, and now you have an additional cost of $508.3 million. Now I do understand the rationale, but I will give you a chance to explain to the public. Now, if the tender price came back lower than originally expected, how come we have cost overrun here? Is it because the tender price was deliberately made low and resulting in a higher expenditure? Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Can I give the floor to Mr. Chen? Regarding additional costs for additional works for topside developments, we applied for funding first in 2012. We need to reserve money for topside developments, and that was only known to us after 2012. For topside development on Exhibition Center Station, we only knew it in 2013. For the Diamond Hill Station, because the planning for the CDA was not completed yet, and therefore it was not possible to prepare for that.
Well, please let us have more information. When did you submit this for town planning? The town planning date? You have to go through a lot of statutory procedures. When did you submit this to the town planning board regarding Diamond Hill and the Exhibition Center Station and so on? I queue up again, please. I've got a question for para 29, actually. Mr. Roy Kwong, 3 minutes for the second time. Chairman, we've been here all morning. We shouldn't have had this meeting in the first place. And this is not a meeting about epidemic, and you're seeking $10 billion to fill in the black hole. $10 billion, if you spend this money on the pubs and on those affected by the epidemic, it would be really good value. Now this really is not justified. $300 million for the refurbishment of the PSRC, Police Sports and Recreation Club. Now, PSRC is in Prince Edward. Why has it got to do with the SCL? Now that's because the POC, the Police Officers Club, has been affected by the SCL. It has to be demolished, and the big, the top guys don't have anywhere else to entertain. And you are refurbishing the PSRC. Now this is taxpayers' money, and you are procuring the stepper, the 65-inch big TV, the treadmills, and so on. I mean, all these items that I mentioned is paid for by taxpayers' money. Secretary, I must make it clear here that the funding mentioned by Mr. Kwong, when we sought funding from Let's Go at that time, we've made it very clear about the reprovisioning in situ. This is not in the overspending. This is 1125, Project 1125. Is this project paid for by taxpayers' money? Well, you are very articulate, Mr. Chen. Is this money well justified? Is this really unjustified amount? Well, all the money is taxpayers' money. Well, you buy the treadmill, the exercise bikes, and also the 65-inch big TV, and this is really amazing. Well, the Secretary is answering you. Please, Mr. Chen. I defer to Highways Department. The Director can explain to members. I'm asking about the big TV. Well, we can answer the question regarding the refurbishment of the PSRC in Prince Edward. This takes up a small portion of the total. Director? As Secretary said, because of the needs of the project, we have to demolish the POC in Causeway Bay, and for some period, no place for entertainment. Well, in the electrical paper, we have made clear this arrangement after demolition. We will be reprovisioning in situ, but the site has to be used for the SCL. We couldn't do it at that time. Well, they can answer the question about the big, massive TV. Now you're spending 300 million, some say it's 600 million. This overspending of $10 billion, it must have something to do with that. Maybe you were spending this money, and by the end of the process, you ran out of money. That's why you are seeking further funding. Secretary, I've made it very clear that the in-situ reprovisioning and the refurbishment, this doesn't come within the cost overrun. And we have made it very clear about this project at the very beginning. Mr. Jeremy Tam, 3 minutes. Para 22A, the 7-car train to 8-car trains. I put this question before. Now you're converting the 7-car to 8-car, and you have to procure more rolling stocks to enhance the carrying capacity of the entire TML. Now, have you changed the carrying capacity? Now, whatever the number, over the years, has the projection changed? Now, is it the case that there is a common aspiration for longer trains? That's why you're procuring 8-car trains? Or is it the case that you've changed your projection about the carrying capacity, and therefore you are procuring more rolling stock? Yes, please. Director Chen, Chairman, at the West Rail line, instead of 7-car trains, we're going to use 8-car trains. In terms of design, in the TML, the ultimate number of cars were designed to be 8 cars. When during the design stage, the decision for 8-car didn't happen at the early stage. As you remember, there were many discussions over the years. NT West has seen a rapid increase in population, and the burden on the West Rail has been really enormous. So we saw the need for more capacity. And it was at that time that we saw the need for an increase in the carrying capacity. So in the process of TML construction, we figured that we can increase the number of cars. You haven't quite answered my question directly. We have an increase in population in the NT West, but is it the case that you have changed the projection regarding the carrying capacity? That's my question. Short answer, Director. I've already touched on this, Chairman. The total patronage for the 8-car train, we need to have the right platform size. I know that ultimately you're going to have 8-car, but you haven't quite answered my question. Well, as I said, the patronage increase in patronage has occurred earlier than we anticipated. So it was different from your earlier prediction, is that right? Well, it depends on the patronage, the size of the patronage. So is it clear? It's not clear. It's already been said that there is a change in the size of the patronage. What is the change? How much is the change? Well, can you supplement further information in writing? Next, Mr. Michael Look, 2 minutes for the third round. A technical question. There is some delay. There is a cost overrun. We'd like to do a better job. The east-west corridor, 12 cars to 9 cars. There was a reduction there in the number of cars. And they also talked about improving the signaling system and increase the frequency. I've asked some professionals here, the new system may mean that there would be further delays and there would be overcrowdedness, and you may not be able to achieve the optimum frequency or headways as a result of the reduction of the 3 cars. Are you going to maintain the 12-car trains for this line? I know that there are problems with the exhibition center station. Are you considering some other means to maintain the 12 cars? Dr. Kam, Chairman, thank you. In order to tie in with the Cross Harbour line, we have to change to 9-car trains. And for the new signaling system, in order to achieve the maximum throughput, we need to convert the train into 9-car train before we can do that. So this is a step that we have to take in order to get this achieved. So how can you make sure that the patronage will not be reduced? I think you are trying to cut the dress according to the cloth, as it were. How can you make sure that you will be able to maintain the same headway and frequency? And what about the overcrowdedness on the platforms? Dr. Kam? First of all, the number of cars, the trains may be shorter, but if we have higher frequencies, we should be able to have the same carrying capacity. And SCL, we have done a lot of work about the platform. There will be screen doors on the platform. This will enable us to control the flow of the passengers. Mr. Atichu, well, I received from Mr. Alvin Young a motion without notice in accordance with the 32A. Yes, I haven't quite written up. Yes, I do. There are members who have pressed the button to speak. I'm sure that we're going to hear from more members. And also there is a 32A motion. We may not be able to get around to this today. Since there are more members on the list, I will extend the meeting to 10:45. Mr. Atichu, for the third round, 2 minutes, please. Mr. Chu, Chairman, thank you. I'd like to remind Mr. Frank Chen that a television set may not cost an awful lot of money, but political disasters because of a television set might flare up. You remember Mr. Timothy Tong, the former ICAC chief. Now he got into trouble with the fish balls, and also the Mao-Tai wine and so on. I've got a question here for the MTRC. I raised the question, the issue of black box operation, and the numbers have been changed. 87.3 billion, dropping to $80.8 billion. And the most amazing bit is that 2017, the overspend was $16.5 billion. After squeezed by the administration, it's been slashed by $4.4 billion. Now, the Secretary and the Director mentioned all these plausible reasons. I'd like to hear from Mr. Jacob Kam From the MTRC's point of view, the government has cut the $4.4 billion. Let's take away the $1.3 billion. Should someone in MTRC be held responsible, or is it the case that both of you are doing the right things? Who should be held responsible? Dr. Kam, Chairman, thank you. In 2017, if you look at the projection end of 2017, it was 80% complete. Today, it is well over 90% completion rate. Over these 2 years, a lot of the contracts have been completed, and some of the claims have been resolved. Sorry, Mr. Kam, Dr. Kam. Director Chen already mentioned that for the $4.4 billion, in some cases the risks have fallen away, but are there cases in which you have got the projection wrong? Dr. Kam, Chairman. In accordance with the data, like including the risk assessment, we conducted the assessment and the projection. The major difference is that at that time the project was 80% complete. Now it's well over 90% complete. So the projection now is certainly far more accurate than it was before.
Dr. K.K. Kwok, 3 minutes speaking for the second time. Thank you, Chairman. Being a chairman, I want to express extreme regret for your convening the meeting today, because there are many other meetings suspended with issues more pressing than what's on the PWSC, and the public will feel that you have done something inappropriate. And you have exposed all members and officials present to unnecessary risks. But I think it's a waste of time to talk to you about this. All right, I have some questions on the paper. First, for a demolition of the POC, you spend $297 billion on demolition and $6 million for reconstruction. So more than $800 million are involved. Is it right or wrong? $897 million. Is that true or false? Allow time for the secretary to reply. He just have to give a yes or no answer. Well, he can answer in his own way. Well, we have to reprovision the POC in Causeway Bay, and in PRSC at Prince Edward. That's roughly the amount of money. Well, many people suspect that you are pulling wool over our eyes. First, there is increase in GFA. Now, for POC, I'd like to know the amount of increased GFA, and also for the PRSC, I'd like to know the additional GFA. Do you have such figures? For alterations to GFA, we are trying to find the relevant information and verify it. You just tell me yes or no. Well, there has been changes. What is the percentage increase? We are verifying it. You dare to lie in council? We ask for the extra GFA. I think you are condoning the police to expand their POC and PSRC. We give you questions in writing, and you come unprepared. Do you want to take this chance to continue to cheat Hong Kong people? I'd like to know the percentage increase in GFA in the two facilities. You can't even tell us the increase in the percentage of GFA? Yes. We received Dr. Kikiko's question dated the 23rd of March asking for a number of figures. We're trying to respond ASAP. You come here to ask for more money and you boost the GFA of the two facilities. You continue to deceive Hong Kong people. I will not let you go easily. Dr. K.K. Kwok has asked some very detailed questions seeking statistics and data. I urge the administration to respond to K.K. Kwok's questions and the information he sought ASAP after the meeting in writing. Ms. Claudia Mo. Thank you. Now I'm counting. Over 30 people are here in this meeting. And this morning, I was told that a certain Ronnie Tong, a member of the EXCO, said that to fight the epidemic, we should limit the size of social gatherings in the community. It can be limited to 4 or 6. I'd like to highlight the absurdity and of this meeting and how it is unnecessary. Well, you just want to have all the money for the SCL ASAP. Well, even FC has cancelled its meetings, not to take a break, but to fight the epidemic. Right, for the topside development, you are asking for almost $600 million. And you told us that after 2012, there have been new developments in relation to the Exhibition Center Station and the Diamond Hill Station, and that is why. But there is an item involving Wan Chai North Station because a delay of 6 months. You need extra works and extra money is needed. Are you talking about the same sum? I am a bit confused. Anyone from the team? Mr. Chen, Director. Thank you. The two items are different. And the rise in project cost is due to different reasons. First, we need to cater for future topside developments, and extra load is needed for the foundation works. And for Wan Chai North, there are other works going on in parallel, and there is interface between some work sites and taken over by SCO, and because of some reasons, there have been delays, and that has led to project increase as well. Dr. K.K. Kwok, 2 minutes. I hope the Secretary can answer my questions directly. I'd like to know the number of treadmills that will be procured for the two facilities. How many? Do you have such information, and the cost of each treadmill? As I said, we are verifying the figures. So you don't even know the cost. Now, these questions were put to you in November, 4 months ago. Ms. Stanley Chen asked for such information long ago, and you dare to just start it here. All right, how many treadmills? How many? We're still verifying the figures, but the amount, how much? Tell us. As I said, in PSLC, we have added facilities to at a total cost of $300 million. $300 million. The facilities account for about $2 million, just a small percentage. $2 million, a small amount. Now, because of the works, facilities at POC cannot be used for the time being. $300 million, and you call it a small amount. The poor in Hong Kong will be so enraged hearing this. They are out of job, and the government don't care that they are unemployed, and $300 million for improvement of PSLC, and you call it a small amount of money. I didn't say that the project cost was a small amount. And let me reiterate. Back then, now, they just couldn't use the club for a few years, and you give them $300 million. Now, for people who are out of job, or for people who cannot use their facilities in the community, and you give them $300 million, they will be so happy. Well, the directors promised to give us details in writing after the meeting. How many treadmills? Chairman, don't stop him. There is no reason for him to unable to answer this question. We've been seeking an answer for a few months. Please be straightforward. How many treadmills? I've said many times that I will verify it as soon as possible. You can at least give us a rough idea. 1 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30. Ms. Andrew Wen, I was about to ask another question, but then this is outrageous. Giving us a reply after the meeting? Well, Ms. Tanya Chen gave you a letter seeking such information in December. You need to uphold your dignity, Chairman. In a meeting chaired by yourself, the governments turn a deaf ear or just ignore our questions. I think the money is already spent, isn't it? Must it be? Is anything to hide? Yes, $2 million is not a big sum. Still, it is public money. Now, if everything is proper, you just tell us. They keep saying that the information will be provided after the meeting. After how many meetings? Secretary, you don't have to worry. I have questions for you. $300 million. I am very unhappy with this. Chairman, after I am done with my questions, you must press him to answer these questions. If they don't come with the answers next week or next time, we don't need to meet anymore. It's a waste of time. Now, the POC in Causeway Bay will be re-provisioned. Was the POC entirely vacant? Was there no facilities there? They have to procure a new one. I'd like to know where are the original facilities, because they have to buy new ones. Now, the public care a lot because we talk about $300 million. Did they just play board games or what? Board games? So I'd like to know, where are the original facilities? Why do you have to procure new ones? All right, you have bought the new facilities, and you have re-provisioned the facilities to PSLC. Then there is no need for a new PLC. They can share one club. All right, you spend $300 million on PSLC, and you have to re-provision POC. Now, you don't have money to compensate bars and restaurants. And you have money for this. Mr. Frank Chen, I understand the thinking of members, but I have to make it clear that when we came to let go for the APE, the detailed arrangements and breakdown were clearly explained to the council. Please use that as the basis. Now, you call that very detailed. Now, in future, when you give us a total amount, I will ask for the nitty-gritty. No, your question is about the cost for re-provisioning and the temporary arrangement. The details were given to members back then. When it comes to details such as the number of treadmills, as I said, Dr. Kikeko's question came on the 23rd of March, and we are very meticulously collecting the information. Why don't you talk about Ms. Tanya Chen's question or letter? Now, we have only got 2 letters outstanding. One dated the 23rd of March from Dr. K.K. Kwok, and 13th of March from Ms. Tania Chen. If you need further information, we're happy to answer. However, the original POC was it entirely vacant. There were no facilities. With new facilities purchased, where are the original facilities? Well, can some of the equipment and facilities be reused? For the equipment, originally in our POC, we have handed them back to the police for its disposal. And after we have we're done with the site, for original facilities in PSRC, we'll see whether they can be used in the new POC. This is really superfluous. I don't think we have enough time for Mr. Michael Tian because we have to end by 10:45. If you have got any motion under ROP 32A, I want to receive them, or please let the secretariat have them by the close of play on Friday. So if you have any motion under ROP 32A, please let the secretariat have them by 5 p.m. this Friday. Date of our next meeting, the 1st of April at 8:30. That is next Wednesday. The secretariat will inform you of the meeting arrangements. So the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.